Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Philanthropic February, day 11. I'm Nicola, this is Stitches and Slapdashery, and today I have a little seed of an idea for another bag to make. I'm hoping it's going to work out. I've done a little bit of math, and I will put the camera in front of me so that you can see my notebook, and I'll go through the math, and then I will try and recreate it in fabric and hope that it works out. I hope your day's going really well. I did a little random act of kindness today, and normally I wouldn't brag, but this is Philanthropic February, and I just want to point out that I am practicing what I preach. Someone in Ravelry, I was reading their post in one of the forums in Ravelry, and they said that they wanted to post a picture of something that was not knitting, and so knitting or crochet. It was a sewing thing, and they didn't want to abuse the project pages by uploading a photo to a project page and then putting it in the forum post, but their fund money had run out. So I gifted them the Ravelry Extra, which is $5 a year. It's super cheap. It came out of my PayPal balance, so thank you to anyone who's tipped me through Ko-fi, because you just helped somebody out in an indirect way. So now that person can enjoy a whole year of uploading direct to forums from their device, and I can add another little happy notch to my heart, put it that way. I gave out a few more hearts at work yesterday. I don't know if I said that when I did the second part of last night's video. And I'm favoring, that's the word, favouring the hearts with the glitter in. That Hobie Christmas yarn was definitely a good choice for making those hearts, because they look very blingy and lovely. So I'm just going to have a slurp of my tea, and then I'll show you what I've worked out so far. My plan is to make a drawstring bag very similar to this one, but bigger. This is the one I made with that super easy drawstring method, where you just have a big piece of fabric for the outer, another one for the lining, and it just goes together really fast. You end up with this built-in drawstring channel, which is a little way down from the top, so when you pull the cord you get a little frill on the top. So I had in mind, while I was finishing getting my chili prepared for dinner, because I'm going to be home late from work today, I had an idea that it would be fun to make one which is denim at the bottom, and that pretty floral fabric that I used yesterday at the top, and that would mean that the top wouldn't be as stiff as the denim. So it could have like a two-tone effect. So I was doing some math. So while I was upstairs in the kitchen, I scribbled this out, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have this style of bag and maybe make that piece of fabric half denim and then a quarter of the length floral at each end. Obviously, then I'd need to cut another piece that's all lining. Just as well, I just bought some interfacing, because I want to put some light interfacing on the back of the floral, because the denim is so much heavier. So when I got down here, I did a bit more math. This is what I'd like it to look like. So the proportion, I googled the golden ratio for rectangles, and it was very mathy, but I think I basically took from it that if you have a rectangle that's 1 by 1.6 of the length, it looks perfect, or it looks like really pleasing to the eye. So it's approximately 9 by 14 is a finished result. That 9 is times 1.6 is approximately 14. Doesn't have to be exact. So I do want it to have a boxy bottom at the bottom there. So I'm not counting that in my 14, so I have to allow for some extra length for boxing the bottoms afterwards. So here's my long strip that I'm going to have to piece from the floral, the denim, and the floral. Half of it is going to be the denim and the floral at each end, because it's going to get folded. This is going to be the bottom of the bag right here. And I wanted it to be 9 finished, so add a seam allowance for each side. For the 7-inch piece, I've had to allow for a seam allowance each side here for joining to the denim and for the seam allowance at the top. For a 14-inch finished piece of denim, I've actually added 3 inches, so it's going to be a 17-inch finished piece of denim because I want to allow for a 3-inch base. So I will box the bottoms at 1 1/4 inch. That should take out about 1.5 inches, I mean. That should take out about 3 inches from the height and end up with a 14-inch bag. This is how I'm hoping it's going to work. And then I'm adding seam allowances, and the same with this piece, adding seam allowances, and then for the width, wanting to finish with 9. I might have already said that. So I need to cut 1 piece of denim, 2 pieces of the floral, another piece of the floral for this whole lining, and some interfacing for these 2 pieces of floral. And then I need a 3/4 inch channel because I didn't make this channel wide enough. It's only 1/2 inch and it was a real struggle to get the cords in. And I'll probably position it 1.5 inches down. So when I do my bag sewing, I need to leave a little gap in my seam on my right side so that when it's sewn, I can then do a channel for the drawstring. All will become clear in time. Just hoping my math turns out to be right and it has a pleasing result at the end. I cut all my pieces, put the lightweight non-woven interfacing on here. Oops. And I've seamed it and top stitched it. You can't see the top stitching because the pink goes with the fabric so well. Because of the width of the denim, I've had to include the jeans seam. I actually really like it when you can see that it was upcycled from a pair of jeans. The only downside is the stitching is orange. I mean, there's a bit of peachy colour in here. Not a lot I can do about that. I can't really sew over it with the pink. I tried a little sample and it doesn't work. So I'm not going to pick it all out and re-sew it with pink. So there's my long piece. I finished all this part before cutting the lining because I wanted to be sure I had the right measurement for the lining. So once I had seamed all this, top stitched it, pressed it, everything, then I cut the piece for the lining, which is this piece here. So now all I need to do is put these 2 right sides together and sew across the short ends. So if you wanted to make this with just a solid piece of fabric and not be faffing about with piecing, my outer piece ended up being 31.5 inches long. So I will let you know at the end what all the measurements, the finished measurements are, in case you want to recreate it at all. Right, just going to sew these short ends. And show you what I do next. Once those 2 end seams are done, just a case of flipping it and getting those seams to match. At this point you could press it. You could iron your seam and iron your seam allowances, but I don't feel the need right now. So the important thing is to get this as well matched up as possible, because this is where your seam matching is going to be most visible, along with this part here. I can see there's going to be a bit of fudging required, I think. Yeah, a little bit of fudging, and of course it's not going to stretch too easily, but I may have to give it a little tug as I'm sewing. Now this is the point at which I have to put a couple of marks on here so that I don't forget to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to want a turning gap. So I'm going to put a turning gap. I need it far enough from the bottom that I can box my bottom 1.5 inches, but far enough from the top it doesn't interfere with my drawstring. So probably around here. Little X there so I don't sew on it. I'll put it on both sides in case I end up sewing the other side. And then for my drawstring channel, not sitting particularly flat here. I'm hoping, ooh, yeah, slipped. So for my drawstring channel, I'm going to mark, do I want it a whole 1.5 inches from the top, or is that too much frill? If I do that, and then I add the channel, it's going to be right down here. I think I might do it 1 inch from the top. Just made a note on my piece of paper in case I do this again. So 1 inch from my seam line is there. Apologies for all of the imperial measurements. It's just, I'm perfectly bi-measurable. It's just, I tend to work at inches when I'm sewing. And then I want a 3/4 of an inch gap for the channel. Okay, so I don't want to sew here, and I don't want to sew here. I will sew along, back stitch, hop over, back stitch, go all the way along here, back stitch, hop over, back stitch to the end, and this side will just be a little gap here for the channel. I think that's it. All right, now I'm just going to draw in a 1.5 inch square from the fold and from the seam line. So it's not from the edge, but it's from the seam line. And I think this might give me a bigger base than 3 inches by a bit, but that's all right. Sometimes the math just like does my head in. That's going to be very close to that denim seam, so hopefully it'll be fine. My seam should be about here. So it'll be close, but it should be okay. I'm just going to snip these out and then I don't have to faff about. Oh, you know what? My measurement looks wrong there. Why does that look wrong? 1.5 inches. Ah, how did I get that wrong? Okay, 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches. I somehow managed to get this one too small. Measure twice, cut once definitely applies. Think twice, act once. This is where you feel like you're at the point of no return because you just cut a chunk out of your fabric. So if you do use upcycled jeans, again, this is something to keep in mind. That if you've got bulky seams in there from the jeans leg, try and avoid having it go into the boxed bottom. I'll fold that seam open. Whoop. The bulk is pushing my foot a little bit. I'm going to just neaten that bit up because it's looking a little bit rough. Yeah, it definitely pushed it off to the side. My seam allowance went wonky. I'm going to redo that yet again. That's better. This might be Stitches and Slapdashery, but sometimes my inner Virgo perfectionist comes out. And I have to make sure it looks okay. So another thing you could do if you're a little bit of a perfectionist is iron this seam allowance open. I tend not to, but I will be checking that it's sitting open when I do my top stitching. I think what I did with the other bag was I may have used some double-sided tape to hold this down. Or I could use a bit of heat and bond or something. Let's use this double-sided tape because it's accessible and won't do any harm. I feel like it just helps to get everything to sit nicely when you sew the channel. That's just an extra step that you really don't need to do necessarily. Okay, time to flip it around, right side out. Looks very long and thin right now. I'm hoping that by the time I'm finished, the proportions will be pleasing. I love birthing bags. It feels like the exciting time of making a bag when you actually get to see what it looks like. Okay, that looks kind of cool, the way that seam wraps around the base like that. Love it. What I like to do is just leave this turning gap open until the last step. So I make sure that this seam allowance is sitting open so that when I fold, it's not too bulky. I can see that I did not match that up particularly well because the seams don't match perfectly. And then the same on this side. That side's better. So again, you could press this part for top stitching. Whether you do that really depends on the fabric and how crisp it is. Because I've got the interfacing on here, I think it's going to be fairly easy just to finger roll it and then clip it, ready for stitching. I think I could have made this bag a bit wider. I think it might look a little narrow for its height, but I won't really know for sure until I have put in the drawstring and cinched it up. Oh, the top stitching is done. Now what I need to do is do a couple of lines where I need to sew around for my drawstring channel. And that needs to be lined up with the 2 gaps I left earlier. So that's right here and here. You can see the hole there. What I do like about having a thinner fabric around the top rather than the denim is that it's easier to top stitch, there's less bulk, and when I do the drawstring cinching, it'll close up nicer, so that'll be good. Oh, I've got, that's interesting, so I should have thought of that as well. Because I measured down only 1 inch from the top rather than 1.5 inches, my frill is only going to be 3/4 of an inch, or actually, hang on a minute, 7/8 of an inch. It's 7/8. It's not a full inch because of my seam allowance. I'm hoping it doesn't look a little bit inadequate. I just feel like the frill is a nice touch, but it takes away from the capacity of the bag. And what I will do with this friction pen after, I will just iron it off, of course. So that'll be my first line of stitching. And then my second line of stitching is at 1 5/8. What you have to be careful about when you do this step is making sure that the lining doesn't kind of pucker up on you. You don't want a puckered lining. So I am going to just throw in a few pins so that the fabric on the inside isn't pulling up and getting in my way. I want it to sit nice and smooth underneath there. So my bag has ended up being 9 inch wide as planned and 13 to here. So without the boxed bottom. So 13 to here. And then the depth of it is about 4 inches. 3 3/4 inches. Because I cut it at 1.5 inches and then sewed it, the box bottom was actually bigger than 3 inches. You have to add the seam allowance into that. So that works. That explains that one. And then this came out a little bit shorter than planned, which is actually a good thing because it's too narrow for my liking. So if I make this sort of thing again, I would make it at least 2 inches wider. So instead of cutting my pieces at 9 inches plus seam allowance, I would cut them at 11 plus seam allowance. Too late for this one, but it's still a usable drawstring bag, so I'm not going to fret about it. Okay, hang on a minute. I'm all in a knot here. So I'm rather pleased that I managed to get this done this morning. Feels good to have the project of the day done early on, because if I'm not finishing work till 6, where's my hole gone? Here we are. I'm not finishing work till 6. I probably won't be home till at least 6:30, and then I have to eat. And then I have to do a workout because it's Wednesday. Probably should have cut my second drawstring at the same time as my first, shouldn't I? So that I made sure I got them the same length. Never mind. I can make it fairly similar. I follow this guy on Instagram and now YouTube. His YouTube channel is called Double Makes. His name is Jamie. And he is a very muscular man who looks like he should be a strong man in a circus, and that's a compliment. It's certainly not anything else. But he has this handlebar moustache. He's quite young, but he has a handlebar moustache. And he sews. A lot of the things he sews are jackets for himself, and they're quite complicated things. They've got hoods and zippers and welted pockets and all sorts of things. But he sort of narrates his progress, and there's always challenges. And I just identify with a lot of the challenges he has, and I've just realised I'm doing this wrong. I'm going in the wrong side. Whoops. See what I mean? And then he'll look at the camera and say, sewing. Because he obviously loves to sew, but he's learning, just like the rest of us. We're all learning something as we go. His YouTube channel is very new, so go and check it out. Oh dear. I'm running out of space again, even though I made this channel bigger. My bodkin does not want to go in. There we are. This is where having the seam allowance stuck down with the double-sided tape also helps, because the bodkin doesn't hang up on it so easily. All right, let's get this masking tape off here. Don't need that. So yes, 2 things I would do differently with this bag. Make it wider, and also maybe have a piece of denim that coordinates better with the fabric, because I can't help feeling that orange stitching doesn't exactly enhance the look of it compared to that lovely floral. Another thing it's quite nice to do when you're doing a drawstring is to put a bead on the end. Right. Make them a bit more blingy, or maybe even make a little fabric thing for the ends so that you're not just looking at a knot. I'm not going to bother with that. There, you see, it cinches up beautifully because it's only cotton and not denim. So it closes great. There's a little frill at the top, which is fine. It could have been maybe the full inch. But to me, that definitely looks a little out of proportion. So maybe I should have gone with my original intuition that was 1.4 for a rectangle. I think 1.6 was definitely too much. So in other words, if you have a 10-inch width, then maybe you should go for a 14-inch height and not a 16-inch height, if you know what I mean, as an example. But yay, it's done. There is one thing that my extension table is good for, and that's balancing a little tripod on it so that I can talk to you nice and close up. So there's my finished bag. Definitely a bit too narrow for its height, which is a bit disappointing, but it's all learning, and I'll know better for next time. I just realized I haven't closed up the lining gap yet. So I need to go over to the machine and just get that finished, and then it will truly be finished. So that's us done for, what was it again? Day 11? I'm terrible at remembering what the date is, you know. I hope you enjoyed following along with today's project, and do remember to go and enter the giveaway on day 7's Philanthropic February video and enter to win a pair of toadstool earrings. All the details are in that video. And I'll see you again tomorrow with something else.